Hello everyone, this is Mohan Kumar. Today we will be talking about concept of homeostasis and feedback mechanisms. So in this session our main objectives include to learn and understand the basics of homeostasis and the role of feedback mechanisms in regulating this homeostasis. So at the end of this session, you should have a thorough knowledge about homeostasis and the way it is regulated by feedback loops. So to understand this, I have included the concept of homeostasis, components of homeostasis, and both positive and negative feedback mechanisms with an example for each. Homeostasis refers to the body's ability to maintain a stable internal environment. This includes regulating hormones, body temperature, water balance, and all that. And the importance of this internal environment was notified by a great biologist of 19th century, and his name is Claude Bernard. He is the one who enlightened the fact that multicellular organisms, including man, live in a perfectly organized and controlled internal environment, to which he called milieu interior. The word homeostasis was introduced by a Harvard professor, Walter B. Cannon, in the year 1930. The internal environment in the body is the extracellular fluid in which the cells live. There is a fluid outside the cell that it constantly moves throughout the body. It includes blood which circulates in the vascular system and fluid present in between the cells called interstitial fluid. In simple terms, ECF. ECF contains nutrients, ions, and all other substances necessary for the survival of the cells. Normal healthy living of large organisms, which includes us as human beings, depends upon the constant maintenance of internal environment within the physiological limits. If the internal environment deviates beyond the set limits, the body suffers from malfunctions or dysfunction. Therefore, the ultimate goal of an organism is to have a normal healthy living, which is achieved by the maintenance of internal environment within this set limits. For the functioning of homeostatic mechanisms, the body must recognize the deviation of any physiological activity from the normal limits. And fortunately, the body is provided with an appropriate detectors or sensors which recognize this deviation. These detectors sense the deviation and alert the integrating center, that is usually the brain, that is the controlling center. The integrating center immediately sends information to the concerned effectors to either accelerate or to inhibit the activity so that the normalcy is restored. I have a few examples here to describe the homeostatic mechanisms of each function. An example here is the pH of the ECF has to be maintained at a critical value of around 7.4. The tissue cannot survive if it is altered. Decrease in pH leads to acidosis, or the increase in pH leads to alkalosis, which affects the tissues markedly. The respiratory system, blood, and kidney help in the regulation of pH. In another example, body temperature, which is maintained at 37.5 degrees centigrade. Increase or decrease in body temperature would alter the metabolic activities of the cell, and to regulate the increase or decrease in temperature, the skin, respiratory system, digestive system, excretory system, skeletal muscles, and nervous system are all involved in maintaining the temperature within normal limits. Another example can be an adequate amount of oxygen should be made available to the cells for the metabolism of nutrients. Simultaneously, carbon dioxide and other metabolic end products must be removed. The respiratory system is concerned with the supply of oxygen and removal of carbon dioxide. Kidneys and other excretory organs are also involved in the excretion of waste products. This is in relation to maintenance of nutrients. Many hormones are essential for the metabolism of nutrients and other substances necessary for the cells. Hormones are to be synthesized and released from the endocrine glands in appropriate quantities, and these hormones must act on the body cells appropriately, otherwise it leads to normal or abnormal signs and symptoms. As I said earlier, water and electrolyte balance should be maintained optimally for this. Otherwise, it leads to dehydration or water toxicity and alteration in the osmolarity of the body fluids. Kidney, skin, salivary glands, and gastrointestinal tract take care of this. Like this, there are several examples attached to regulating the homeostasis in the body. Maintaining homeostasis requires that the body continuously monitors its internal conditions. From the body temperature to blood pressure to level of certain nutrients or blood sugars, many other factors or physiological condition has a particular set point. And what's a set point? A set point is a physiological value around which the normal range fluctuates. Whereas a normal range is a restricted set of values that is optimally healthful and stable. An example, a set point for the normal human body temperature, as I said earlier, which is around 37.5 degrees centigrade or 37 degrees centigrade approximately. Physiological parameters such as body temperature and blood pressure tend to fluctuate within a normal range, a few degrees like 37 to 36.5 or 37.5 degrees centigrade, above and below that point. Any deviation to this can be disastrous. So a bigger deviation is actually recognized by control center. Control centers in the brain play roles in regulating physiological parameters and keeping them within the normal range. As the body works to maintain homeostasis, any significant deviation from the normal range will be resisted, will be altered, and homeostasis is restored through a process called as feedback loop. What is a feedback loop? As we see here, the feedback loop has three basic components. Number one is a sensor, which is also known as a receptor, which is a component of a feedback system that monitors a physiological value. It is this which is responsible for detecting a change in the environment. This value is reported to the control center. An example for this, a thermoregulation, if I have to talk about, the increase in temperature, ambient temperature, atmospheric temperature, would be picked up by the sensory cells and nerve endings of your skin and would be sent to the brain. Here the sensor is your nerve endings or the cells in the skin which recognizes this heat, rise in heat. So the control center is a component in a feedback system that compares the values to the normal range. So when this signal is sent to the brain, that is a control center, it evaluates the normal range, whether it is increased or decreased. If the value deviates too much from the set point, then the control center activates an effector. An effector is the component in a feedback system that causes a change to reverse the situation and return the value to the normal range. The effectors can be muscles and glands. In case of drop in temperature in the body, an effector would be a brown fat which will burn and release more heat. So feedback loops are of two types. Number one is a positive feedback loop. Number two is a negative feedback loop. So in this slide I'm presenting the positive feedback loop process. By definition, positive feedback loop is a process in which the end products of an action causes more of that action to occur in a feedback loop. This amplifies the original action. It is actually contrasted with the negative feedback, which is when the end results of an action inhibits the action from continuing to occur. So positive feedback mechanism, the end products of an action causes more of that action to occur in a feedback loop. In a negative feedback, it is the negation of that effect. Okay, so positive feedback normal range results in more change and the system moves farther away from the normal range. So positive feedback in the body is normal only when there is a definite end point. An example for this would be childbirth and body's response to blood loss, which are very good examples of positive feedback loops that are normal but are activated only when needed, or otherwise they are not activated at all. Childbirth is a rare phenomenon, so is blood loss. So these are activated only when it is needed. Positive feedback mechanisms are designed to accelerate or enhance ongoing output that has been activated by a stimulus. Unlike negative feedback mechanisms that are initiated to maintain or regulate conditions within a certain narrow range, positive feedback mechanisms push levels beyond normal range. Clearly, if unchecked, positive feedbacks can lead to a vicious cycle and it can be dangerous to the body. It can also be fatal. So here is an example of a childbirth. Childbirth at full term is an example of a situation in which the maintenance of the existing body state is desired. So enormous changes in the mother's body is required to send out the baby at the end of the pregnancy. At the end, baby has to be delivered out, partured. And the events of childbirth, once begin, must progress rapidly to a conclusion, or the life of a mother and the baby are at risk. For this, the extreme muscular work of labor and delivery are the result of positive feedback mechanism. So what is the process like to talk about? So here if you see, in childbirth, the baby's head presses on the cervix. So the bottom of the uterus through which the baby must emerge and activates neurons to the brain. So stretch receptors activated in the uterus and they send out a signal to the brain. So the brain, the neurons which send signal to the brain will ask the pituitary gland to release a hormone called as oxytocin. So brain signals for release of oxytocin. So oxytocin, when it is released, oxytocin causes uterine muscles to contract. It would contract as long as oxytocin is present. So oxytocin is produced in an episodic manner. So till the uterine contractions are increased and the birth of the child is complete. Once the childbirth process is over, the positive feedback loop stops, meaning the stress receptor will no longer send a signal to the brain asking it to release the oxytocin. So that way oxytocin release is regulated. Here the uterus opening is actually regulated by the uterine contraction through the oxytocin release. As long as there is a stretch required to deliver the baby, the oxytocin will be producing in an incessant manner. Once the childbirth is complete, oxytocin production stops. So thereby the positive feedback mechanism, as the definition we said, the end product of an action causes more of that action to occur. So uterine contraction increases the oxytocin production as long as there is a stretch receptor sending the signal to the brain that it has to open wide for the baby to come out. Once the infant is delivered, there is no need of contraction, there is no need of stretch to send a signal to the brain. So oxytocin production is stopped. So it is positively regulated. The second type is the negative feedback mechanism. Negative feedback, which can also be called as the balancing feedback, occurs when some function of the output of a system, process or mechanism is fed back in a manner that tends to reduce the fluctuations in the output, whether caused by changes in the input or by other disturbances. It is a mechanism in which the effect of the response to the stimulus is to shut off the original stimulus or reduce its intensity. So negative feedback loops are the body's most common mechanisms used to maintain homeostasis. The maintenance of homeostasis by negative feedback goes on throughout the body at all times, continuously. It is the body keeps regulating each and every action and functioning of the body, which is regulated through negative feedback mechanism. So negative feedback is a vital control mechanism for body's homeostasis to self-stabilize the system. Here the picture depicts the body temperature, or thermoregulation. So I have another picture which would explain better the thermoregulation using negative feedback mechanism. So negative feedback loop maintains homeostasis in the body's thermoregulation mechanism. The body maintains a relatively constant internal temperature to optimize chemical processes, that is around 37 or 37.5 degrees centigrade. So neural impulses from heat sensitive thermoreceptors in the body signal the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus located in the brain compares the body temperature to a set point value, as I discussed earlier about set point values. It will evaluate whether the temperature is increased or decreased. If at all, when the body temperature drops, the hypothalamus initiates several physiological responses to increase heat production and conserve heat. So what are they? So first thing, that is to the left side, the blood vessels constrict. Narrowing of surface blood vessels, that is vasoconstriction, decreases the flow of heat to the skin. And second, shivering commences, increasing production of heat by the muscles. Adrenal glands secrete stimulatory hormones such as norepinephrine and epinephrine to increase metabolic rates and hence heat production. These effects cause body temperature to increase. Even sweat glands do not secrete fluid here. Shivering, generating heat, body metabolic rate increase, all this increases the body heat. So body heat, if it has fallen down from the set value, using these processes, the body heat is generated back. So heat is retained in the body. So when the body temperature rises, suppose this heat produced is much higher than the set value, what happens? Blood vessels dilate, indicating the widening of the surface blood vessels, that is vasodilation, increases the flow of heat to the skin and get flushed. And sweat glands release water, so we sweat out a lot, and evaporation cools the skin. These effects cause body temperature to decrease. When it returns to normal, the hypothalamus is no longer stimulated and these effects cease. Many homeostatic mechanisms like temperature have different responses if the variable is above or below the set point. When temperature increases, we sweat. When it decreases, we shiver. These responses use different effectors to adjust the variable. In other cases, a feedback loop will use the same effector to adjust the variable back toward the set point, whether the initial change of the variable was either above or below the set point. An example can be pupillary diameter. It is adjusted to make sure an appropriate amount of light is entering the eye. If the amount of light is too low, the pupil dilates. If it is too high, the pupil constricts. So that is why it is regulated negatively. Most of the body function is regulated using negative feedback mechanisms. So I believe you have understood the mechanisms of homeostasis with few examples provided for positive feedback loop and also negative feedback loop, and the components, that is the sensor, control unit, sensor and control unit, and the effector. So we stop here, and thank you very much for your patience listening. You can reach me if you have any doubt in this topic. Thank you.